Hey everyone, it's Nicole. Today I'm here to review a very special book that left an imprint on my heart with its beautiful characters, intricate plot, and amazingly written detail. If you didn't realize yet, I absolutely loved it, and the book that I'm talking about is Darken by Kiersten. It's a pure historical fantasy that follows two heirs of Wallachia, a brother and a sister, that are sent away by their father to the Ottoman Empire in exchange of peace. Left on their own, Lada and Radu have to figure out how to survive on an enemy territory and how to move forward from their father's betrayal. I'm sure this book will be appreciated by people who are fascinated by alternative history and who constantly think about what would have happened if a certain thing didn't happen in history, or if a certain person didn't exist. This is a great example of one of those books. In it, instead of Vlad Tepes, the famous Vlad Dracula, we have a girl named Lada with the same temper and the same character, but because of her gender, her story turns a different way. I wouldn't expect an 100% retelling of real Vlad Tepes' story here. Some of the things were reimagined, obviously. The book is equally entertaining if you know who Vlad Tepes is, and if you don't know who Vlad Tepes is. Despite the fact that this book is both plot and character driven, I think that characters played a bigger part, at least in my enjoyment of the book, because they were golden. I myself fallen absolutely in love with Radu and Lada, and also with a few other characters that we meet during the length of the story. They are secondary characters, but they're still written very well. We're following these characters from a very young age, and we see snippets of their stories when they were children. Even though they age fast, Kiersten couldn't write the whole prequel to the book because it would have been another book. You still get attached to them during these few snippets in their childhood, and you get their motivation better. Plus, the scenes are very interesting and they set the mood of the story. We get a peek at Lada's inborn aggressiveness and violence, and in contrast to it, we observe Radu's softness, which is a really intriguing concept. Those snippets help us understand the characters more, so I think it was a great technique to use. It's not daunting because it doesn't take a half of the book. Instead, it is helpful. As I said, I absolutely adore these characters. I love the drama and I am very into political intrigue. I think the second book has to be even better because the ending to this book was huge. On this note, I would like to move to the spoiler section of this video because I'm afraid to spoil something and ruin your experience with the book. So if you didn't read the book yet, what are you waiting for? Go read the book and then get back to this video and watch the spoiler section. Alright, now let's talk about spoilers. What I loved about Lada the most is that despite being a female Vlad Tepes, her violent nature is not taken down a notch. She is pretty aggressive, she is pretty violent, and she doesn't care about hurting people that are not her family, like at all. She has a softer side, and her special soft place is her friends and her family, which is quite understandable. Despite being an asshole in a lot of times to Radu, she absolutely loves him, and it means so much to me that this type of character was written in a young adult book. I mean, that's huge. I'm also proud of this book because it didn't change Lada when she fell in love. When she realized that she's falling in love with Mehmet, she continued this relationship, but she remained herself. She didn't want to be married to Mehmet because she realized that it's going to take something from her. She wasn't ready to sacrifice herself, and instead she made a tough choice to leave everything behind and move back to Wallachia to take her throne. It was such an amazing and moving plot point because most of the times in young adult fiction we see women sacrificing a bigger goal and settling, which obviously I'm not a big fan of, and I believe most of you are not keen on it either. Lada was so great, she was so believable, because you've seen a little bit of her childhood, you've seen her training, you trust that she's a warrior, you trust that she's capable of it. The woman warrior trope was done so well with such precision and so honorably. I really couldn't stop feeling a sense of pride when I was reading this book, even though I didn't write it. The other character that I've fallen in love with is obviously Radu. He's my baby now. I cannot do anything about it. He had so much growth during the length of the novel, but he will still remain my precious cinnamon roll because I love him so much. At first we were presented with him as a child. He's the youngest child, so he's very emotional and whiny. He constantly follows around Lada and it gets on her nerves, so they have a lot of fights. Obviously where Lada prevails because not only she's older, she's also physically stronger. But with time Radu gets older, and although he's not training to be a soldier and he's not particularly keen on physical violence, he learns to wield for himself in a different way. His biggest strengths are his looks and his smartness, so he uses these gifts and charms half of the court on his side. It's a very interesting dynamic to follow because Lada gets everything by using her physical strength and Radu uses words, and both of these techniques are equally successful. Then there's obviously the fact that Radu is gay, which was a delightful detail for me despite the fact that I believe that Mehmed doesn't deserve his loyalty. He did find a sort of a purpose being close to Mehmed, but at the same time his life would have been much easier if he wouldn't be in love with him. Mehmed is a very complex character and I'm not sure how I feel about him. At some points I hated him and I didn't want to read about him at all because he's driven by selfishness and greed a lot of the times. First of all, he doesn't need Constantinople to leave and he's going to be a good ruler without it, but he really wants it, and that's his reasoning behind a whole war. The other point is that he's aware that he's keeping his friends close because of his own selfish reasons, but still he asks them to stay despite the fact that they could have a better life somewhere out of his reach. In his relationships with Lada, he also is pretty selfish. He continues going to the harem and he doesn't want to admit that he wants to go there. He always said that it's his duty. I mean, fucking other women is a duty, since when? He also has 2 heirs already, and this issue is sometimes addressed, but sometimes Lada wants to ignore it, and it's an interesting thing to read about because there's 2 forces fighting in Lada. One is that she really loves Mehmed and she wants to be with him, and the other one is that she's not sure that she can be with him when he acts this way. I'm very interested to see what's going to happen in the next novel because the characters are amazing and their stories are going to develop even more. The cliffhanger was everything to me. I was surprised, I was taken aback. I didn't expect Radu to be that loyal. He killed a friend to save Mehmed and I didn't expect it from him. And Lada just decided to get back to Wallachia and take the throne, which in my opinion is very honorable and is very right. That's all the things that I wanted to say about this book. I'm very excited for the sequel, as I said before. In the comments down below, write all your emotions and thoughts, your expectations from the second book, and everything else that you want to mention. Thank you for watching this video. To see you soon in my next one.